It's Wednesday. It's time for our chat with Mark Bouris, the Executive Chairman of Yellow Brick Road Home Loans. Mark, good to see you. Auction rates, how are we tracking at the moment?
Well, nationally, auction rates are slightly up in terms of clearances, and which means that there is an improvement. If you look at Sydney by itself, Sydney auction rates are from last weekend are up significantly by about 5% in terms of clearances, which is a very good thing, given that we have virtually double the number of places for auction currently compared to, say, 1 year ago. In terms of Melbourne's slightly down, a little bit down. So we're tracking quite well in terms of auction clearance rates.
Yeah.
But on its own, that doesn't mean much.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, and we're coming into the hot season too, aren't we? We're coming into spring, which traditionally it's on fire. Are you expecting anything different this year?
Well, I'm just getting a feeling, because I talk to all the agents all the time, and for example, someone like Tom Panos is telling me his clearance rates are really jagging up high. Like, in other words, 8 out of 9 properties that he auctioned on the weekend were sold. And that doesn't necessarily mean sold under the hammer. That could be sold straight after the auction. Then that's an important part, or it's sold maybe a day later. I've got a feeling that when it comes to investors at the moment, that they are starting to feel a little bit more positive about things. In other words, they know that the interest rate cycle is not at the end. We've got more to go, but we're close to the end.
But also, I mean, they can get a good return from rents, right? So there's a big attraction there.
Well, right now, we're getting a lot of data that's coming out that's saying that currently across Australia, we are 40% less properties available for rent than we were 1 year ago. So we have now got 80,000 properties available for rent across Australia. That is 50,000 less than a year ago. So that only tells me one thing. That's in capital cities. Well, I don't know the answer to that, Pete. I just think perhaps we've had a lot less supply of new housing over the past 12 months. And as a result, and also there's a lot less people who qualify to buy a property now compared to, say, a year ago. And therefore they have to rent.
Just a sidebar to that. When it comes to migration, if we allow, 200,000 plus in every year, I mean, obviously that's going to be good for the economy, and there does need to be a rise there. That's only going to inflame the housing crisis even more, isn't it?
You would expect so, particularly when it comes to rentals, because most of the skilled migrants, at least who come to Australia, do not arrive here with enough money to be able to put up a deposit, and generally speaking, they don't qualify for loan because they haven't been here long enough. So the answer is they just put more pressure on the stock of housing available for rent, and that's going to increase rentals significantly. Rentals have already increased over the last 12 months by 9%. That's 9.1%. That's one of the biggest rental increases we've seen in 30 years over a period of a 12-month period, which means the investors work that stuff out very quickly and they start bouncing back into the property market, and that's one of the reasons why we're getting better clearance rates.
Okay. Well, on the other side of the coin, I just noticed this report from Westpac's August Housing Pulse report yesterday that said Sydney house prices could drop by 10% by the end of this year, and then another 8% by next year. That seems to be at odds with what the auction rates and clearance rates are telling us at the moment. Which side of the ledger is correct?
Well, we don't know, and that's part of the dysfunction that exists within these restructural periods. So we have a restructuring period right now. But I want to say something about that particular report, or all those reports, but in particular people like Chris Joy are saying the same thing. When they do their calculation, this is mathematically based, they work out, and I've been talking to you about this for some time now, they work out the amount of money that a borrower can borrow, and therefore the amount of money a borrower can spend either at a private treaty or at an auction. And as interest rates rise, you expect that to be a lot less. And we do expect interest rates to continue to rise. But also there's another phenomenon, Pete, which is a really important phenomenon. The effects of the rate rises that started in May haven't really started to hit yet, because the general lead time of an interest rate increase by the Reserve Bank doesn't hit the pockets of the borrowers until about 90 days later, because lenders like us, we've got to reset, we've got to give you 30 days notice, and then it happens the next month. So we're only really starting to see the effect of the May and the June rate rise right now. We haven't seen July, we haven't seen August, and we won't see any more that are coming through until towards the end of the year. So sometime next year, we expect that there to be more price reductions as a result of borrowers not being able to borrow as much.
That's a good point. So what does Philip Lowe do next?
I reckon he's going to put rates up next. My gut feeling is this. They like to get to what they call a net zero position, net zero being the cash rate, the Reserve Bank rate, minus inflation. So if they would like inflation to be, say, around 3%, which is not at the moment, but if in a normalised market, it would like it to be around 3%. Therefore, you would expect them to have the cash rate at 3%, which gives them net zero. So we're nowhere near 3% at the moment. We're at 1.85. So if nothing else happens, expect there to be at least 2 or 3 more rate rises before the end of this calendar year.
All right, Mark Bouris, good to see you as always. We'll chat to you soon.